When I was little, my dad for a while worked in a lab studying congenital Chagas. And I remember accompanying him to the lab and looking through the microscope at blood smears. And that really captivated me. I was very curious and loved to do experiments with a chemistry kit for kids. I did enter medical school influenced by my mom, who is a psychiatrist, and my stepdad, who is a psychologist, because I didn't know what to study. But they said that medicine was so broad that in the end, there will be an area or many areas that I would like. And they were right. Then my first husband wanted to do basic research. So we came to the United States and we joined UVA. And at that time, I was planning to do a fellowship in pediatric endocrinology, but they already had a candidate for the upcoming year. So they offered me to start a year later. And because here, fellowships consist in 2 years of research and 1 year of clinical training, I committed to start with the research part and doing 2 years of research on renin cells, which are endocrine cells. And at that time was when I first got a pipette in my hands. I was in my early 30s, and I was finally able to fulfill my originally postponed and maybe hidden desire of doing research. So for me, research was kind of an aspiration that I had since a child, and like a seed that then germinated following basically a series of chance events, many unexpected. Well, I have not doubted about my abilities as a scientist, maybe because I was already a grown up when I started. But on my second year as a postdoc in the lab, one Saturday, very early in the morning, I was all by myself doing transplanting embryonic kidneys under the kidney capsule of adult mice, like many other days. But this morning, it was mouse number 100. And instead of being proud and feeling excited about my record, I started thinking that I was a pediatrician with lots of clinical experience. And instead of seeing patients, I was far away from my country, earning much less money and working with mice. So it was the first time I felt down and doubted about what I was doing. But I was very lucky because when I went back home, that day I received by Federal Express a letter from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute telling me that my postdoctoral grant application was awarded. And I couldn't believe it. This was really exciting. And the letter also stated that Howard Hughes determined my salary, taking into account all my previous extensive clinical training. And it basically doubled my salary. So this was a national recognition that gave me a great deal of confidence and made me feel that what I was doing in the lab was worth it. Well, when I was in medical school, the fields that attracted me the most were psychology, neurology, endocrinology, and immunology. And I wanted to combine them all and specialize in psycho, neuro, endocrine, immunology. And I ended up studying the renin cells, which are endocrine cells present in the kidney, but they are also present in the brain and in other nervous tissues, and they share transcriptional signatures with immune cells. So I'm still happy with what I'm doing. But for me, additional areas to pay attention to would be, for instance, understanding how the mind works, which is perhaps the next frontier, and integrating the psychological, neurobiological, and biochemical aspects of it. And I also would give a lot of attention to research that help us protect our planet, figure out ways to eliminate hunger, poverty and violence. So, but overall, I think that any basic science topic should get attention. And there is always a lot of pressure to do translational medicine and mostly to get grants from NIH. But in order to do so, we need first to acquire knowledge to translate. And that basically comes from basic science. So yes, I think in this country, international people, and especially women and other minorities in general, face more difficulties in their careers. And it is harder for them if they have an accent and if they come from developing countries. And even harder if they are introverts. So extroverts do always much better. But I think that what we need to do is try to create the physical and psychological space to listen and make sure that others also listen to women's needs. And it happened to me many times that I would suggest something at a meeting, and then somebody else would give exactly the same suggestion without a foreign accent and without realizing I had already said the same thing minutes before. So throughout my career, I met some outstanding women in science, very supportive of other women and underrepresented minorities. And these are real role models to follow. But I also realized, for example, in study sections, that women in general are tougher when evaluating other women's grants, and that men end up being ultimately great advocates for women. So I think that we need more women who pay attention and speak up for other women, but we also need to bring up on board men and other people, the whole community, to help advocate for women and other minorities. So I think that what you are doing with this series is a great initiative and will open many eyes, ultimately to help bringing down many roadblocks that still exist. And for example, it is unacceptable not to have appropriate and affordable childcare in the workspace. My daughter was born almost 26 years ago in Argentina while I was doing my clinical fellowship. And at my hospital, there was an outstanding childcare center. So I was able to continue breastfeeding her, changing her diapers, and spending time with her every day while I was working. But when I came to Charlottesville, my daughter was 20 months old and I had to find a daycare far away from the university, leave her there early in the morning, then pick her up in the afternoon. And I felt that in that regard, this was a less advanced country than the one I came from. And after 26 years, I think that not much has changed regarding affordable childcare here. So this is, of course, something that needs to change. If you love science and if you enjoy what you do, never give up. Don't be afraid of changing gears or asking for help. Be always flexible. Talk to your mentors and to your peers. Rewrite and resubmit your manuscripts and grants as many times as necessary. Sooner or later, your hard work will be recognized. So I know great scientists that had to reshuffle and resubmit their grants maybe up to 10 times. So never give up. But I think that the most important thing would be to try to balance your career and personal life. Leave time to spend with friends, family, and to have fun. We have only one life, which is worth living.